Okay, quick review of yesterday. So the main question focused on Hilchos Teshuvah 7.3, okay? And I'm just going to read it in Hebrew, and the English is up here if you need. Al tomar she'ein ha-teshuvah ela me'avera she'esh behen ma'aseh, kagon znus v'gezel u'gneva, kashem she'tzarech adam lashuv me'elu, kach hu tzarech l'chapes b'deos ra'al she'esh lo, v'lashuv mehen, mina kas, mina eva, mina kina, mina tachrus, mina hitol, mina difas ha'mamun v'al-kavod, umridifas ha'malchalos, umukiyotze behen. Mina kol tzarech lachzor b'teshuvah, be'elu ha'bonos kashim me'osin she'esh behen ma'aseh, shebizman she'adam nishka be'elu kashu livrosh, Okay, so that's the halacha. So we had a series of questions. Okay, so the first question we had, which is why you need to be told that you need to do teshuvah from bad Deios. Okay, that was the question Chaim and I had. And then Yosef's question was, why should you do teshuvah from bad Deios? So I mentioned that Yosef is more in line with the Rambam, because apparently the Rambam has to tell you this, because apparently it's a good havamina. Okay, then there's a separate question, which is there's a mitzvah of the halachta b'drachav, okay? And we read it in the Mishnah Torah yesterday, but I want to read it in the Sefer Mitzvos just to see if he says it differently. So the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav in the Sefer Mitzvos is the 8th positive mitzvah. This is the mitzvah to emulate God according to our capacity. You should walk in his ways. Okay, it's repeated. Just like God is called merciful, you should be merciful. Okay, so that's the mitzvah, is you have to develop these good midos, because that's what God is called. After Hashem your God you shall walk. So that the content of the mitzvah is that you should make yourself resemble in good actions and good midos to those attributes that are ascribed to God by way of mashal, because God is above all actual like attributes. Okay, fine. So the mitzvah is to get good Deios, okay, the Rambam calls them, and all of Hilchos Deios is talking about how to do that, okay? So we had a question, which was an old question, which we leveled up, okay? The old question is, if this is one of Taryag, okay, and if you violate it by having bad midos, so why do you need to be told that you need to do teshuvah on bad midos? In other words, if you ate pork, you got to do teshuvah on eating pork. If you violate Yichud Hashem, you have to do teshuvah on that. And if you violate the halachta b'drachav, you have to do teshuvah. You have to do teshuvah on the bad deos that you have, right? So that's one question. But then the new version of the question is, if the halachta. So in Hilchos Deos chapters 1 and 2, he goes through the whole method of how you fulfill this mitzvah. Is that there's, each dea has two extremes, and you should aim for the middle path, and that's the way you get those deos is you do the actions that correspond to the middle path again and again and again till they become easy. And then in chapter 2, he says, if you have a sickness of the soul, which is where you are attached to one extreme, you do the actions corresponding to the opposite extreme again and again and again until you hit the middle, and then you stay there. Okay, and that's how you develop deos. So the new version of the question is, what is the difference between being Mekayim the halachta b'drachav and doing teshuvah on bad deos? Okay, in other words, it seems that there is definitely an overlap. So is it the same process? Is it like, is the Rambam just taking two different angles here? That was the main question from yesterday. Okay, so what do you say? Oh, and by the way, we did something. Oh, so Rabbi Fader and I were both talking about this question on the second night of Rosh Hashanah, and then yesterday between mincha and maariv, I did something I've never done before, is I cheated. When we asked Rebbe, but thankfully I didn't understand his full answer, and also we got cut short because of maariv. So I don't have a full answer from him, but he did give some direction. My direction is different from Rebbe's, but I'll try to relay what he said, and I'll try to get clarification from Rabbi Fader. But yeah, so what do you say? Yeah.
Where you but your deos is if you're saying change your deos, and what's the you that's changing?
Okay, go on. That sounds interesting. What do you mean? What's the you that's changing?
As in that you change your just someone else, so as in that change your deos is in a sense equivalent to suicide.
Pardon me for laughing. That was funny. Well, you are the being who has the deos. The deos are a feature of you. They're a feature of your psyche specifically, right? So you're not actually like annihilating your essence. You are changing the features that you have. And in fact, the Rambam in Deios, this actually might help. How do you get Deios? Like initially? Nurture. Okay.
And like a little bit of predisposition.
And a little bit of predisposition, right? So he says, yeah, right. Not compulsion, just predisposition, right? So he says, where does he say how you learn Deios? Yeah, he says, so between each and every extreme dea, there's a middle dea, equidistant. Some deos come to you by the nature of your body. So I think that, by the way, let's say is like egocentrism, right? Or aggressiveness, or desire for pleasure, right? Those are like in human constitution, okay? There are other deos that you have a predisposition for, which means that they're quicker for you to acquire than other deos, like we talked about in the Sunday shir. There are other deos that a person does not have from the beginning of his creation, but he learns them from other people. Like that's the nurture, right? Or you turned yourself to them based on a thought that you had. Or you heard that generosity is a good trait and it's proper to follow it, and then you like practice it until you get it. Yeah. So it's a feature of yourself that you're choosing to develop, or that you already had that you're choosing to like change from. Yeah. So back to the question: how does what's the difference between being Makayim b'halachas b'drachav and doing Teshuvah on bad deos?
I feel like being Makayim b'halachas b'drachav is simply like a positive in a sense.
Okay.
And that like you don't necessarily need to say, I'm not doing this. I'm doing something bad, and therefore I need to be doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Versus Teshuvah is like this midah that I have is a bad thing, so I need to correct that and do the whole Teshuvah process with that, and then move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's essentially what Rebbe said that I got from him. Okay, which is that it's possible he was saying more than that, but he said that that you doing this process of Deios, especially the way the Rambam talks about it, where you're just basically practicing actions until your midos change, that does not need to involve Teshuvah, right? Like you could have been a let's say like a miser and like not giving up any of your money, and then you just force yourself to give tzedakah until you change. That's very different than looking at yourself and saying, wow, like what was my relationship to money, and like what distorted view of justice did I have? How did what view of my fellow human being did I have, where like this person could be starving and I wouldn't give them money, and then you realize that these actions of not giving tzedakah were stemming from like this internal imperfection that was making you distant from God, and then you correct that. So this one answer is a different process, that Teshuvah involves looking at the Gavra and seeing a flaw and that has manifested itself in the past, and then changing that going forward. Deios is just like, okay, I want that dea, or I don't want that dea. I'm gonna go make a change here, and it could be done completely behaviorally. Also just along those lines, we said this I think when we first started going through Hilchos Teshuvah, that in Perek Shvi'i he mentions that Teshuvah takes you to Hashem. That Gzila Teshuvah shemakareves as Adam l'Shechina. I know he doesn't say Hashem there, but Teshuvah is great because it brings a person close to the Shechina. Shnemar Teshuvah Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha. Return Israel unto Hashem your God. V'nemar lo shavtem lo shavtem. I don't know what's going on here. Is that the pasuk, or is that a V'lo shavtem adai nu'um Hashem? Oh, it's a criticism. They did not return to me, said Hashem. V'nemar im tashuv Yisrael nu'um Hashem elai tashuv. If you return Israel, then return to me, says Hashem. Klomar im tachzor b'teshuvah bi sidbak. If you return to Teshuvah, cling to me. So Teshuvah, and like the Rambam says in the Koseres, that Teshuvah is ikarim hanigrarim ima biglala, that there are a bunch of ikarim that are drawn with it. So Teshuvah, it is a whole metaphysical overhaul to who you are, and aligning yourself with Hashem. Deios is just in the psyche. Deios is just working on your character, and you don't even need to get to Hashem in order to do that. You're emulating Hashem in action, but you're not actually necessarily changing your internal like orientation to reality. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good approach. Okay. Yeah.
Would that? I guess it wouldn't be considered Teshuvah, but would that lead to Teshuvah? Like
So that's a good question.
Are you at a point of Teshuvah? I mean, it's hard to do a change like that without thinking about it almost.
So here's the thing. I think, I think it could lead to Teshuvah in the way that people tend to think of Teshuvah, which is like aziva sachet and resolving not to do certain things again. But the way the Rambam thinks of Teshuvah, of like recognizing that you sinned before God and then like repairing your connection with God, I don't think it necessarily leads to that. And the proof, I think, is that like atheists or like self-help motivated people can do Hilchos Deios stuff. I don't think they can do Hilchos Teshuvah stuff because that really involves like an examination of where you stand in reality vis-a-vis God, So it could lead to Teshuvah like accidentally, but not like, it's not like part of the process, You could complete the process of Deios without necessarily like being prompted to do Teshuvah.
So Deios is almost like a self-centered fix.
Yeah. In many ways, it is much more self-centered than Teshuvah. And it's funny because Teshuvah, he mentions, we didn't read these halachos, but Teshuvah, there's a lot of things that he says. I'll just read this, even though we're not going to work on it. The Darchei Teshuvah in chapter 2. Halacha 4, Midarchei Teshuvah, one of the ways of Teshuvah is Lihos Hashav Tzoek Tami Lifnei Hashem B'V'chiv V'Sachanunim, is that the person who did Teshuvah should cry out constantly before God in crying and supplication. V'Oseh Tzedakah K'vi Kocho, do tzedakah according to your means. Misrachik Harvei Min Hadavar Shechata Bo, distance yourself exceedingly from the thing you sinned with. Umeshane Shemo, change your name. Klomar, as if to say, She'ani Acher, I'm another person. Ve'ini Oso Ha'ish Shasa Osan Hamasim, I'm not the same person who did those actions. Umeshane Masav Kulam Latova Uliderek Shara, change all your actions to the good. V'golim mimakomo, exile yourself from your place. Shegalus mechaperes avon, because galus atones for sin. Mipnei shegorem slowly hichaneav lios anav ushval ruach. It causes you to be submissive and humble and lowly. So I think Rabbi Feder gave a shiur on this last year, which is a really good shiur. But the common denominator here is all these have to do with like your identity, and like humility of like realizing you're downplaying the former self and reestablishing a connection to either a new identity or to one of many human beings, or and like and so it is moving you away from the self-centeredness in a way. The Deios though could be self-centered as well. Okay, so I think what we'll do is like this. We have one more Rambam Bekius, I think, before Yom Kippur, which is on Monday, because I'm not going to give on Erev Yom Kippur. Yeah, I know, right? It's a little time, yeah. So I have my own approach to this this question, which I think I'll save for Monday because it is in line with the Yugum Midos Harachamim. And again, another plug: if you haven't listened to the Yugum Midos Harachamim shir, it will enhance your Yom Kippur, Yom Kippurim. The one that I gave, yeah. I think I sent it out again on Motei Shabbos because someone asked me to, or Motei Rosh Hashanah, maybe. I think on the content chat, yeah. I can put you on it. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll do that then. All right. So have a good day. Yeah. What happened to the video?